Rupert Lowe, the ex-Reform MP booted for bullying allegations, just launched Restore Britain as a full political party in February 2026, promising mass deportations, anti-work crusades and slashing benefits. But is Lowe out of his depth, similar to the fractured Conservative spaces I've covered before? And why do both Restore Britain and Ben Habib's Advance UK need to beef up their policies if they want to be taken seriously? In a week where Reform's leading polls, Lowe movement looks like ego-driven fragmentation. So let's break this down. What's Rupert Lowe's new Restore all about, and how does he really know what he's doing? We'll look at the launch, his policies, or lack thereof, compared to Advance UK, and why solid policy is really important and also to do with these fringe right-wing groups. Similar to my video on conservative spaces, this is why ego splits hurt the cause. The launch and Lowe's backstory is that from Reform bust up to a new party, Lowe has launched Restore Britain as a national party on February 13th, 2026. An umbrella for local groups like Great Yarmouth First, he's standing there. He started it as a movement after Reform suspended him in March 2025 for alleged threats to Chairman Zian Yusuf. Lowe called it a brutal smear, and Farage a coward. As a businessman, ex-Southampton FC chair, Lowe positions Restore as different politics, local priorities, national backbone. But does he know what he's doing? His Reform split was messy and Restore looks like a grudge project. No massive membership claims either, just promises so far. Restore Britain's policies are hardline but they're vague, and needs to be more in detail to do with Restore's manifesto, focuses on immigration. Detain deport illegals, suspend asylum and net negative migration, abolish indefinite leave and red list countries for checks, collective punishment on groomers, relocate Afghans, and the other bits as well to do with end workery and hold local institutions accountable, slash benefits to cut unemployment, cut taxes, ban quantitative easing, reduce staticism. Recent papers are that Restore in the British pub, tax cuts for pubs, though I think this is a bit lacking, quite similar to do with Farage caring more about pubs than actual land and farming, even though that Lowe has also said that he wants to also fix the British countryside, which is what the British characteristic is a part of in his speech that he mentioned about generations and to do with farmers. Healthcare for illegals costing 80 million a year. Again, it's hard line, but it's very vague. How to implement deportations, funding, and lack of conservative spaces. Lowe talks big or lacks depth. Policy actually does matters. Without the specific, it's just hot air. Voters want plans, not slogans. And to do with comparing to Advance UK, or Advance UK as it's known, both need better policies to survive. Ben Habib's Advance UK launched in June 2025, and though it's very similar, nationalist anti-separational institutions, compulsory reparation of illegals, restore Christian values and dismantle multiculturalism, dismantle wokeism, which is quite similar to what Restore Britain is doing. And to do with their policies, though it feels like a PowerPoint, if you look at some of them, for example, with cease or reverse massive migration, then controlled, culture immigration statements unveiled in February 7th, 2026 in the conference, with 35,000 members, 320,000 donations, both hard right, but Advance is more polished a little bit compared to Habib with his ex-Reform deputy, and to do with them both lacking detailed manifestos. Advance says policies are developing, Restore is similar, but the reason why this policy matters, without costed plans, timelines, legal how-tos, they're fringe. You can't win voters or hold power. Like conservative spaces, they're ego projects, splitting their right-wing energy. And Lowe's launch feels like reform spy, but without strong policies, it's doomed to niche status. Advance and Restore should merge policies. Unity beats fragmentation. So anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video about me talking about Restore Britain and Advance UK. And I just want to say that when I actually heard about this party, I actually heard about, or even spoken to people online about this, and I think that a lot of the time that obviously the right is very fragmented. I think they're less organised compared to the left, because I think someone actually did a graph recently and it showed how fragmented the right is compared to the left-wing politics. But I would say that left-wing politics is very, not fringe, but more to do with them being more organised, is because they've probably got very, very similar beliefs in not just groupthink, because obviously if people think for themselves too much, then they'll have an ego and split, which maybe you've seen that with your party, to do with Corbyn's, and also to do with the Green Party as well, with their insane policies to do with banning nuclear energy. Even though there is also some splits there, I do think that they're also trying to head off a lot of the competition, or even probably, as people have rumoured, do a merger between the Labour and Green Party, which is basically just Labour and Green are basically going to take all your resources and probably fuck off into a private, or privatisation of basically just keeping all their resources and giving nothing back, which is ironic considering they're supposed to be more socialistic leaning in this case. And also, I want to see more of unity within the right, at least, because then at least there isn't any, cooking to foreigners, and there isn't a foreign policy, and also to do with Rupert Lowell and his Zionism. Now, obviously this has been rumoured. I've seen people talking about supporting Israel, which again, Zionism, obviously, if you try to cook to a foreign government, in this case, it would be very cooked, and also to do with conservative spaces, where I've seen a lot of conservatives, especially including America, and to do with the politics. I've seen in those spaces people cook to Jewish spaces, or to do with Israel, which again, you're going to see I would see a lot of issues there coming down along the line. But again, I'm not sure if he is a Zionist, because there is a policy within Restores that I've looked at so far, and some of them are bullet points and some of them are paragraphs. But again, like I said, I need to do more research into the actual policies. But I looked at Advance UK's, for example, and Advance UK's policy was that they're a bit vague. I did look at a lot of the things. They said they want mass deportations, but problem, like I said before, they need to be in paragraph, and you can't just be vague with bullet points. You need to have a plan. You need to actually show how much it's going to cost the taxpayer, how are you going to do this, what's going to happen, because there is going to be a point in the UK where things are going to go to shit and loads of horrible bad things are going to happen. I'm going to see this as like a civil war, and whether or not that's going to happen, and I'm not saying that it's going to be nice or even anything but comfy, I'm going to see that a lot of these politicians are kind of a way for us to get back in there, because I'm thinking as well, speaking to some of the Homeland people, is that people maybe want to do a merger with the right, because again, we can't keep having these fragmented spaces, because what'll end up happening is when the next general election comes round, what's going to happen is that people are basically going to split the vote, and what ends up happening when there's loads of other right-wing political parties, they're going to end up splitting the vote, and they're going to people are just going to end up voting for this certain party, and then Labour will get in for another 5 years, which again, we don't have the time to argue, and we don't have the time to keep splitting the vote. So hopefully maybe Restore and Advance UK will basically do a merger, but apparently on Ben Habib's Twitter is apparently that they're going to not do a merger, which I thought that he'd eventually do. So maybe Ben Habib's waiting. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but we'll probably have to see for the time being. But again, if there is some Zionist influence or there's these big donors, then I think it will just end up collapsing. But yeah, well, like I said before, we'll have to see what happens. And as well, if you want to go in and link in the description below, where I have links to my other channels and my Discord as well. Oh, and I did want to mention one more thing to do with Rupert and his video. I was going to do a react, but I just haven't had time. But I basically wanted to sum up what he was saying in his video, where, for example, people have criticised him for wanting to ban halal meat, which is basically like Muslim killed meat, where they basically do horrible things to animals, and to do with him not banning kosher. But I think he's catching on to do with the whole, cooking to other nations that aren't only just Muslim, because the problem with conservatives, they only think Islam is just a problem, even though it's people from third world countries. So I think people in these spaces need to be a bit more aware. and also to do with even more things he talks about in his video, like to do with the British characteristics and farming. But again, I've seen people saying that they're not trusting politicians at this time. So I've seen that a lot of the things he says in his video were quite interesting. I think that he was talking about a lot of the issues in the UK to do with workerism and etc. that I've just talked about. But yeah, I think that video that he did was very, I guess, all the Zoomers are very carrying him online a bit with to do with especially edits, like that are very, I guess, funk edits or whatever that people have made him, especially to with Oliver Cromwell. And people, well, actually Cromwell was very cut to the Jews as well, that a lot of people don't know about, so maybe it'll catch up. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I don't really trust the guy, but we'll see.